No way to spin it. That was not good enough.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm Stephen Willis. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we're driven by the details. Highlights make the reel, but the work behind them makes it count. Stay tuned for this week's Moving the Game Forward, the all-new Mazda CX-5. More to move every side of you. On today's show, we'll talk about Ole Miss getting swept by Mississippi State. And honestly, other than Friday night, which was a game that Ole Miss should have won, the other two games were not close. So we'll talk all about that and more on today's Locked On Ole Miss podcast. It was a rough weekend, and Ole Miss struck out 14 times, I think, over the course of Sunday. The bases were loaded 4 times, and Ole Miss managed to score 1 run, and that was on a single by Colin Reuter early in the game. That was the only run of the game. But bases loaded, less than 2 outs multiple times, and nobody scored. There was a backwards K, a pop-up, something like that. Something was happening. They can't manufacture runs. They can't have productive outs. Somebody told them at some point along the way that strikeouts don't matter. What's important is you go up there and swing for the fences. Strikeouts don't matter. And that can't be further from the truth. This game has always been about productive outs and being able to move people on base, at least up a station, to where they're not just stagnant, stuck, to where it's just batting practice out there. And that is what this team pretty much makes happen over the course of a game. Just turns into batting practice. They can hit the ball deep, and they can pitch it pretty well, but they can't play defense. They can't run bases. It was disappointing. And I got a little bit excited. I mean, Todd Walker during the broadcast took this opportunity to kind of, I guess, make fun of Ole Miss. I'm not exactly sure. But Ole Miss bunted with 2 outs that loaded the bases. And everybody's like, oh, you can't bunt with the bases loaded. You can't do that. You got to drive in runs. You can't bunt. And I was like, have you not watched this team play baseball all year? There's no guarantee that they're going to drive in anything. There's no guarantee that any of that is going to happen. I'm just happy he got a successful bunt down. And I thought we were going to get to the point of manufacturing runs. And then Colin Reuter hit a single with people on base. And I was like, yes, we're playing baseball. But alas, no. It was not able to last. They didn't hit home runs, so they didn't score runs after that. They loaded bases. They did what they had to do, but they were ultimately unable to come home. And don't give me, oh, the pitching's too good to try and string hits together. Do not give me that. Nobody on Mississippi State's roster is batting less than 340 or something like that. Don't give me that. This batting style, this batting approach is a choice. I don't know who's making it, but it's a choice. It is a choice they decided to make early in the season, and now that it's not working, they can't back out of it. That is what is going on with this team on offense. And this week, heck, they got Little Rock. That's not an easy win. If your bats continue to not show up, that's not an easy win. And then you go to Florida, who swept Arkansas this weekend. Absolutely unreal. Unreal. Anyway, if you want to pick me up in the chat and leave your comment, I want to know what you think. Please put where you're commenting from in there. We're going to get to that in the second segment of the show before we get out of here. This will not be a 3-episode show. This will be a 2-episode show. I'm too angry to do a 3rd episode. So understand what is going on there. So that is why. But please put where you're commenting from on the chat if you're going to comment, and we're going to talk about that in the next segment. In this game, Ole Miss got swept by Mississippi State for the first time since, I think, 2019, something like that. It's been a minute. But it wasn't just that. They were by far the better team. It wasn't even close. It's like I've said for 3 weeks. This Ole Miss baseball team is good at everything except actually playing baseball. They can hit home runs and they can pitch it a little bit. They had 14 strikeouts on the day for what it's worth. They ended up losing 7-1, but they had 14 strikeouts. And they probably hit a couple balls to the warning track over the day, but nothing over the wall. And there's no gap power. There's no crooked number innings for Ole Miss. And once you get up by more than 2, I don't think this team can come back, especially if you have any semblance of pitching. Now Ole Miss is 3-6 in the Southeastern Conference, with a road series at Florida this weekend. And then you have like Alabama, LSU, Tennessee, Georgia, Arkansas is on that list as well. It doesn't get easier. And at 3-6 after 3 series, it's going to be problematic for getting into a regional. And let me put it to you like this. Let's say that Ole Miss gets swept twice out of their 7 remaining series. That's 6 losses at that point. That's 12 already. They're sitting at that point at 3-12 if they get swept in 2 series. Now, let's say in the remaining 5 series, they win them 2-1. But that's 5 more losses. So you have 17 losses on the season. That makes it weird to qualify if you go 2-1 in the other games. That's what I mean. This could get odd. 3-6 is not a particularly good thing, especially now you have Florida. Florida, like I said, they swept South Carolina, got swept by Alabama, swept Arkansas. And now you have to go down to Gainesville. And if they sweep you at that point down there, you're 3-9, and this season is teetering on being over with 6 weekends left in the SEC slate. It's a problem. It's a real problem. And I was told all offseason, as you, I imagine, that this Ole Miss team was going to hit like a madman, but it was going to struggle to pitch the ball. That's what they said. Turns out the inverse is true. So people feeding into stuff, you shouldn't probably take that at 100% at face value. This team cannot situationally hit. They can't drive in runs. They can't manufacture runs. They laid down a bunt today, which, hey, I gold star for that. But ordinarily, they can't bunt. They have trouble fielding the ball. Like I said, everything but hitting home runs and pitching the ball, they're not very good at. And whenever you're not very good at actually playing baseball, it can be problematic. So that's the way that sits right now. Anyway, thank you for watching the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast out there, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. When we come back, we are going to look at some of the stats, unfortunately, and then segment 3, I think we're going to do a 3-segment show today. We'll take your comments as well. So put those in. Be sure to put where you're commenting from. Want to shout those out as well. But when we come back, we will go over the stats of the game. Hey, this is Moving the Game Forward by Mazda. For those who know, the score never tells the whole story. This week's player of the game, our player of the week, is Trinidad Chambliss, who finished 8th in the Heisman Trophy despite having a coach that absolutely refused to promote him. After the season, the fight went on with the NCAA for his rightfully earned year of eligibility. So, needless to say, it has not been a very fun couple of months for Trinidad Chambliss, but that is all over now. Thank you to the Mississippi Supreme Court. And it's safe to say that the Trinidad Chambliss is he's enjoying every time he steps onto the field for spring practice. There's more to these players than the highlights. The early mornings, late night runs, constantly showing up for their squad on and off the field. The all-new Mazda CX-5 moved the same way. With more space to connect, a bold new design, and more intuitive technology so you can stay connected to the road. And every position you play, the all-new Mazda CX-5. More to every move, more to move every side of you. And it's time for the 5-hour energy flavor draft with 18 different flavors to choose from, including options like confetti craze, fruity rainbow, and cotton candy. There's something for everyone. The board is set. The flavors are ready. And I have my number one pick for the 5-hour energy draft. One thing when you look at it, I have one requirement for a number one first draft pick. And that is, much to the chagrin of Chris Marler of Locked On Gamecocks, it has to be available at every gas station, every convenience store, every grocery store you walk into. Whenever you want a 5-hour energy, this has to be an option. And Grape always is. So Grape will be my number one draft choice. I have a sleeper, of course, you can go with pomegranate. Nice tangy flavor with a little bit of kick. Nice pick me up for what's going on. And if you have a sweet tooth, confetti craze, fruity rainbow, or cotton candy, they're possible. Alternatively, circle back to a flavor that is available. And just like grape, you can go to berry. It's one of the OG flavors. Circling back to that makes your experience that much better. And honestly, if 5-hour energy could create a flavor, which they do all the time, I want a cherry limeade flavor. I think that'd be pretty good. Anyway, find your favorite flavor of 5-hour energy shots, available online at 5hourenergy.com or at Amazon. Hey, do us a favor, like, subscribe, and comment on this video. Subscribe to the podcast on whichever audio podcast catcher you're listening to, and give it a 5-star review. It costs nothing but keeps all of this free. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the number one sports podcast network. Get your first month of the Everydayer Club for free when you use the code MARCH. You'll unlock ad-free episodes and entry into our private listener group chat where I'm hanging out daily. You'll also get the Locked On Ole Miss newsletter, links, all of this. It's like getting your morning paper at about 7 o'clock every morning, including exclusive content from like Dalen Flowers, Mike Huseman, and Corey Burton that you can't get anywhere else. Click the link down in the show notes below or go to lockedonolemiss.supercast.com to claim your free month. All right, so let's look, unfortunately, at stats. The first batter for Mississippi State got on base. The second one hit a home run, and the game was over even before the first out was recorded. That was the game-winning hit for Mississippi State. That put them up 2-0. They ended up winning 7-1. So Ole Miss only briefly got close on a Colin Reuter single, and then it was just long ball by Mississippi State. And like I said, congratulations. They're a very, very good baseball team. But winning two at home, that's always the expectation. Winning one on the road, that's always the expectation. If you sweep, great. If you get swept, that's a disaster, period. It doesn't matter who you're playing. But again, Mississippi State's a very good team. If you look at Ole Miss, Dom Decker went 0 for 3, did have 2 walks. Judd Udermark went 0 for 3. He had 2 walks. Tristan Becerra, 0 for 4, had 1 walk. Colin Reuter, 1 for 4 with 1 walk. Will Furniss, 2 for 4, including going the other way on a line drive single. That's nice to see. I'd like to see that with runners on base. Brett Mosley, 1 for 4, 2 strikeouts on the day. Daniel Pasella, 0 for 4. Austin Foley, 1 for 3. And Braden Randall, 2 for 4. Pretty impressive day for the young shortstop. Again, Ole Miss scored 1 run over the course of the day. They had 14 strikeouts as a staff. The Kate Townsend pitched 4 innings, gave up 5 runs, 3 of them earned. 62 total pitches, 42 strikes for the day, gave up 3 home runs over that period as well. J.P. Robertson, 1 inning pitch, 1 earned run, 27 total pitches and 11 strikes. That's not good. Walker Hooks pitched 3 innings of 1 hit ball, 4 strikeouts, 37 total pitches, 23 strikes, and it was closed up by Random Waters. 1 inning pitch, 1 earned run. That was a home run in the last inning. 9 total pitches, 6 strikes. Mississippi State's a good team. They legitimately are. They're going to compete for all of the awards in college baseball. Seriously, that team has a chance to win it all. So whenever I say what I'm about to say, that is not me disparaging how good they are, because they are a very good team. I was very impressed with them over the course of the weekend. They look like a baseball team is supposed to look. But when you're going up to the plate in 20 to 25 mile an hour winds and trying to hit home runs, now credit to them, they got 2 out of the park somehow. In a game that you probably should have won. You were up 5-4, I think, or 4-3, or something like that. Maybe it was 4-3 in the top of the ninth, and you immediately let the first 2 base runners on, and you were basically cooked at that point. And whenever that happens, and you get blown out in the second game, and you get blown out in the third game, that kind of tells you something of what to expect. And there's some hard conversations that likely need to start happening. Ole Miss still has 3 games against Arkansas, 3 games against Georgia, 3 games against Alabama that swept Florida, and Florida swept Arkansas, 3 games against Texas A&M, 3 games against LSU, and 3 games against Tennessee. That's what the roster looks like. That's not the order, but that's what the roster looks like. You need 13 wins out of 18 games or something like that. 6-3 out of 21 games. 10 wins, 21 games. So that's roughly a 500 record throughout the rest of the SEC. Is it I don't know. That's the point. I don't know. I don't have faith in this baseball team being able to manufacture runs at this point. But at this point, it is what it is. You're 29 games into the season. You are having your baseball season. But this is the same team that we saw in midweek and the week before against Kentucky and the week before against Texas. This is the Ole Miss baseball team. They can pitch the heck out of it. And when they're good, they're really good. And when they're driving the ball out of the ballpark, they're really good. When the other team is walking you, they're really good. When you don't get walks at the plate and you're striking out looking at the worst possible times, when that's happening and the margin of error with this baseball team is so freaking small, it's not big at all. It's not big at all. Whenever that happens, this Mississippi State team is going to beat you. They were coming into this Oxford series favored to win 2 out of 3 to begin with. It was going to be hard for you to win the required 2 games. And when you dropped the first game the way that you dropped the first game, the next 2 just became impossible, a bridge too far. You weren't good enough to win the game. Will they bounce back? I don't know what bounce back looks like. Anyway, we'll take your questions coming up in the next segment. Remember, we're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube, and a special hello to our everydayers who make this show what it is. Remember, the email newsletter goes out 7 o'clock every morning, has a lot of stuff. You can check out the Everydayer Club using the promo card March down in the show notes below. All right, we're going to go to your comments and talk about that. It was not a good win. It was a disaster weekend for Ole Miss baseball. There's no other way around that. And now you just have to focus on spring football. That's kind of what I'm doing. I'm going to do these lives and reaction shows, but I'm going to focus on spring football because football's really good and they deserve everything. All right, so when we come back, your comments right here on the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Hey, what if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house. It's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that actually matter. Robinhood prediction markets changes the game. It's people moving the action. So when momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but I never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now I can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator, paid by play by play. You decide. Trade every play with Robinhood, now available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app right now to begin. Futures and cleared swaps. Trading involves significant risk and it's not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives LLC, a registered futures, commission merchant, and swap firm. This episode is also sponsored by Supply House. You wouldn't show up on game day without a plan. Well, you wouldn't show up at your job without the right parts. That's what putting Supply House in your starting lineup is always the right call. Here are the stats: 300,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products, 500 tried and true brands, and 90% of the country in 1 to 2 day delivery zone. Need last minute coupling, compressor, a press tool, they've got it, and they'll get it to you quickly. They are clutch. If you're a pro in the trades, you can join the MVP of Rewards program and become a trade master. Pros get exclusive members-only pricing, priority shipping, industry-leading customer service, and best of all, it's absolutely free. Visit supplyhouse.com/TM to learn more about becoming a trade master. Use the promo code SH5College for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com or promo code SH5College. Supply House, real people, real service. All right, let's go ahead and see your comments of what's going on. Should be pretty interesting. Matthew Mitchell says, don't let Comment back in the building. Listen, Mike Leach, God rest his soul, used to have one saying that I absolutely agree with. You're either coaching it or you're allowing it to happen. He used to say that all the time whenever something happened. You're either coaching it or you're allowing it to happen. So the approach at the plate, what they're doing at the plate, is either being allowed to happen or Ole Miss is coaching it, which I don't think Ole Miss is actively coaching it, but they're allowing it to happen. And because of that, it is problematic at best with 7 SEC series left to go against really good teams. It's getting real close to a problem if it isn't already here. So we'll talk about that. Sam Norris says we need a new hitting coach, potentially. I'm assuming this is a Mississippi State fan from Henry Wilkins. We walked y'all way too much and let y'all have hope. Well, thanks for the base runners. We didn't swing bats enough, and we haven't for weeks at this point to have hope. Ole Miss should have won the game on Friday night, but they got their doors blown off Saturday and Sunday. There's no other way to put it. And it all comes down to hitting approach. They pitched the heck out of the ball. Ole Miss pitching the ball is great, but it is what it is. Sam Norris says Mosley should play center field because at least he can play defense. If no outfield will hit besides Becerra. Becerra, I don't think had a hit over the weekend. So we can't even say that. Brent Logue says, I'm ready for football now. I've been ready for football. My goodness, it was fantastic when they actually had practice on Friday. This football team being good, and we know this football team being good, makes this a lot easier to take advantage of, because if you were not good and knowing a mediocre to bad football season was coming, this would be rough after what Ole Miss just went through in basketball. So at least there's the hope of football. Sam Norris says, unlike the 2022 season when they pulled the amazing turnaround, this team feels as if they now have a low ceiling because they will be dead last in hitting. Need a Joel Mangrum for hitting. I don't want to sound like I'm calling for anybody's job. Okay. I don't want to sound like that. But the next hire that gets made is a head coach. You had the opportunity to do whatever through there. Then the next hire will be a head coach. The coordinator hire, for lack of a better word, was Joel Mangrum. Period. John Skinner says that was awful. Glad I didn't drive 7 hours to see it. We can do better than this. C. Rogers, our resident LSU fans. Robbie Falk said State left the bases loaded 3 times and left 10 on. Tell both sides. State won the game. There is no tell both sides. C. Rogers, there's not. Ole Miss gets on base with the bases loaded with multiple times. I'm not making excuses and saying that Ole Miss should have scored. I'm saying that with less than 3 runs, you should put up a 1 at least. I'm not talking about a crooked number. I'm talking about getting 1 run in. So lay off. If you've got a problem with it, don't watch. It's not that big of a deal. All right, Marine Rebels says, I really wish we would play a baseball, not home run derby. The way we play is hard to watch. Yes, I describe this Ole Miss baseball team as the driving range superstar that just takes people's money by long driving the ball. He can't chip, he can't putt, he can't actually play golf, but he can drive the ball really, really far. And that is the way I look at this baseball team right now. For better or for worse, that is what I see happening. And he also says, this team refuses to hit the ball the other way. If they do, it's an accident. The only one that I see that relatively consistently does it is Will Furness. Every now and then he will put one over the shortstop, essentially for a line drive single as well. And Bomb Pop dropping in there, the Dodger three-peat. We got a Dodger fan, which used to be a Yankees fan, and I'm sure he likes the Cowboys and the LA Lakers as well. But seriously, though, they better be in line to three-peat, which is with as much money as they spend. But will they beat the Detroit Tigers? That's an interesting question. Something to think about as well. Anyway, tomorrow we are going to talk about the new football team that is being built by Pete Golding, what they're doing and how it kind of goes down the Saban model. It makes sense. He was on Saban's staff for 5 years. There's going to be a period of disciplinary and all of that stuff that they're going to go to. We talk about some of the discipline on the field, how there might be a different person that we're putting as a favorite for right tackle. And of course, we talk about jersey numbers. That is on tomorrow's show. If you want to tune in, again, congratulations to Mississippi State. They are a very good baseball team. You cannot watch them play and not be impressed. You can't. But after 26 or 27 years, you expect a better product to be put on the baseball field than that for Ole Miss. It just is. They take baseball too seriously for there not to be. So thanks for tuning in today to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, and we'll continue to talk about spring football, college baseball all week. Once the college basketball transfer portal, we'll get into that, so make sure you subscribe and follow the show so you get all the latest episodes. We're on all of the social channels as well, so check that out. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Ole Miss ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedonolemmiss.supercast.com to join the club. Use promo code MARCH for a free month of the Everydayer Club. And tomorrow is the debut of our morning news newsletter that'll have information on the show. It'll have some stuff from Dalen Flowers, Mike Huseman, and all of those guys, and some other stuff for you to look up as well. It's pretty good newsletter. I like the way it looked going out today. So hotty toddy, everybody. We will talk to you later. And remember, the Oxford tour stop is coming up in 3 weeks. I will give you the dates of where we're going to be when I have them. I'm kind of at the mercy of David Johnson for that. So we'll talk to you later. Hotty toddy, everybody.